Good morning, First Church, and welcome to worship this morning, and happy Father's Day to all the fathers and dads out there. We hope you have a great day and are able to make the best of it, given the certain times we have going on here, but have a wonderful day. We're going to open up our worship today with some music just to sing of God's glory and God's grace. And as we just open and prepare our hearts for worship this morning, join us in singing, "Arise, my soul, arise." Arise, my soul, arise, shake off your guilty fears. The bleeding sacrifice on my behalf appears. Before the throne my surety stands. Before the throne my surety stands. My name is written on his hands. Arise, 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 my soul, arise. Arise, 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 my soul, arise. Shake off your guilty fears and rise. He ever lives above for me to intercede. His all-redeeming love, his precious blood to plead. His blood atoned for every race. His blood atoned for every race, and sprinkles now the throne of grace. Arise, 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 my soul, arise. Arise, 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 my soul, arise. Shake off your guilty fears and rise. Five bleeding wounds he bears, received on Calvary. They pour effectual prayers, they strongly plead for me. Forgive him, oh forgive, they cry. Forgive them, oh forgive, they cry. Don't let this ransom sinner die. Arise, 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 my soul, arise. Arise, 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 my soul, arise. Shake off your guilty fears and rise. My God is reconciled, his pardoning voice I hear. He owns me for his child, I can no longer fear. With confidence I now draw nigh. With confidence I now draw nigh. And Father, Abba, Father, cry. Arise, 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 my soul, arise. Arise, 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 my soul, arise. Shake off your guilty fears and rise. One more time. Arise, 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 my soul, arise. Arise, 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 my soul, arise. Shake off your guilty fears and rise. God, we come to you today and we are reminded of that sacrifice. We're reminded of that sacrifice, the sacrifice that you gave your son for us, the death that he went through to save us, because we all are sinners. And I know as Christians we believe that we are separate from that, but singing songs like that remind us that we are sinners. And as long as we are reminded of that sacrifice that you made, the sacrifice of you giving your son for us, we can rest assured that that sinful nature that we as humans have is forgiven. And that mercy that we have through the death and resurrection of Jesus is always there for us. We thank you for music. We thank you for song. We thank you for allowing us to just have voices to lift up to you, that no matter where we are, separated or together, that we always have that to fall back on. Thank you for these words that were written, the music that was written down on paper and that we are able to sing. Thank you for that reminder. And we just ask that as we go through the service today, as we go through another week, that we just are constantly reminded of that we're able to run to song, run to scripture. We thank you for that sacrifice. We pray all these things in your name. Amen. I've heard 1,000 stories of what they think you're like, but I've heard the tender whisper of love in the dead of night. You tell me that you're pleased and that I'm never alone. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. I've seen many searching for answers, far and wide, but I know we're all searching for answers. Only you provide, because you know just what we need before we say a word. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You are perfect. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. Love so undeniable. Love so undeniable. I can hardly speak. Peace so unexplainable. I can hardly think as you call me. Deeper still as you call me. Deeper still as you call me. Deeper still into love, love, love. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. Love so undeniable. I can hardly speak. Peace so unexplainable. I can hardly think of you, Lord.
Good morning, First Church and all friends who are with us today. This is our opportunity at this time to share together in what we call sharing of the faith, and that's a chance to reflect on our week and see what we want to take note of. Maybe we want to switch course, or we're in the middle of decision making, or there's something we just want to celebrate together. So I invite you now to unmute yourselves and then to share that which you want to today with us.
Good morning. Yeah, I just want to let everybody know that I'm very grateful for the continued prayers, and I just want to give everybody an update on my medical condition. I am in partial remission. That's good news, and I'll be continue to be treated, probably once a month or so for the next year or so. But things are looking really good, and I feel great. Thank you very much for everything, Church. I really appreciate it. I love you all.
Oh, Mike, we're so happy to hear that. Oh gosh. We're reaching out, Mike.
We're so happy for you, Mike. We're so happy.
I know I said this last week, but I'm just really grateful that circumstances have aligned to for me to be with my father on what's going to be a difficult Father's Day for him. So we've got a lot of fun, nice things planned here at home. I'm appreciating that opportunity.
Thank you, Taylor.
Thank you to the Supreme Court for those two major decisions this week.
Yes.
We're all happy.
Yes.
Here, here.
Yes.
Thank you for the empty seats in the stadium last night.
Pastor Marianne, I like that. Is that a flag or a balloon? What is that in the sanctuary there?
Here, when we went down to Pride Month, we had an outdoor event.
Do is something else.
Walked down to the Pride celebration in media, and I think it was Amber who brought this flag with her. So I just put it up in the sanctuary today because of the my wanting to remember this month as Pride Month and wanting to have a visual, multiple visuals actually, to, just to remember, to honor, and to celebrate.
I love that smiley face. It makes me smile.
Amen. Amen. This is Abangale. I just want to say to all the children who have lost their fathers, may it be COVID-19, may it be the brutality that's happening in this country. I say to those children, we are with you. And I say to the mothers, the spouses, for those fathers who have, left us, we are with you. And the other thing I wanted to say, may it be sharing an announcement, and Pastor Lorian knows about it, is to, I want to thank our outgoing DS, the district superintendent, Dawn Taylor Storm, for the wonderful work that she did for our district. She's not leaving our conference, but she's moving to a new position, the Director of Connectional Ministries for our conference. Thank her for her energy, because we know she watches every service in her district. So we thank her for all that. And the other person is Reverend Lynn George, the resource assistant for the conference. She's retiring. Wonderful, wonderful lady. So we will miss her for her quick responses whenever you needed something. Yeah, that's really great. Thank you.
Um, there are some people here that will remember David Heberling. His son passed away, David.
Wow.
Jackie, I'm trying to remember if we have an address. I think you
I
said,
don't anymore. I tried to find it and I couldn't find it. I don't know if it's still in one of the directories from the conference though.
okay. I'm sure we can get it through the conference office.
Mm.
Mm. Anybody else have something they want to lift up today? And
I was gonna say, I'm just grateful to be back here, and to be with good people and friends and friends, fans. Yeah, I'm just grateful to be back and pretty much.
Michael, it's so good to see you, and we miss you and can't wait to have you have all these great activities again that you can join in and we can all be together. And I think you're wearing your First Church t-shirt, so go First Church. Thanks for wearing that, and
Oh,
appreciate it.
thank you.
I also want to offer a prayer for all of our leaders, our political leaders, in all different capacities. I was in a conversation yesterday with someone, and I was asked about, praying for everyone, and it kind of invited me to think about who I pray for, who I don't pray for, why that is, like just the importance of keeping everyone in prayer. And that goes from, familial to job to civic to political around the world. And I just am just offering my own prayer for every man or woman in a leadership position. Just want to offer that.
This is Barbara Pride. I wanted to tell you that's my granddaughter's 13th birthday for Stacy, and I want to thank Pastor Laurie for being so gracious and having the yoga class in the park yesterday. I really appreciate it. You go out of your way to help everybody.
You're very welcome. It was very fun for those of us that were in the park and those who were online. And thanks for your patience. We were practicing on a hill, weren't we, Pete? And it was a little bit of a challenge to get our yoga on in the hill in Ridley Park.
I would like to share that I'm very, very grateful for the conversation that I had a couple of weeks ago with Rosetta. And in fact, we spoke again last night, but it just, and I personally believe I've not ever been a racist, but it opened my mind to the fact that we can't settle for that it has to be something more. And my mind was open and I started looking at more things and thinking more things and looking at myself. And one of the things I am doing is the book study that Taylor was able to get us connected to. And the first one was last week and it was amazing. And the book that we're reading is amazing. And I would suggest either one of those things to everybody. The young man who's leading the book study is wonderful at leadership, but just the whole thing. And I'm really just so grateful that I have been put on this direction, even though I'm a lot older, that I'm still young enough to learn and live my life a little better. So that's all. Thank you.
Good morning, it's Miriam. I just wanted to say thank you to wonderful fathers. We have fathers in our congregation like Pete and Mike who've been so wonderful. And I'm remembering my father who became both father and mother after my mother died when I was age 11. God bless, and I thank you for them.
Okay, so I don't know how many people have their copy of the worship service, but it is, basically, I am inviting us to read our mission statement. I think it's the perfect day for us to read these words together. Oh, here they are. Thank you. I don't know what we're going to do when we go back to worship and I have to figure out how to talk to people and read a chat and everything all at once. But thank you, Janet, for putting the words to the mission statement in the chat. And I just invite us, just even though we can't all hear each other, to still read the words together, and in something in vocalizing, I hope will allow us to recommit ourselves to our mission statement that we've had for several years now. Welcome home. At the end of a long day, the trolley stops and you find a spiritual home at First Church, where we are called to the ministry of reconciliation. We celebrate our human family's diversity of race, ethnicity, age, faith history, economic status, education, physical and mental ability, sexual orientation, and gender identification. We affirm that all people are created in the image of God, and as beloved children of God are all worthy of God's love and grace. We recognize that there are differences among us, but believe that we can love alike even though we may not think alike. We invite all people to join us in our faith journey towards greater love, understanding, and mutual respect. And now the story will be read by Pete Holston.
Good morning. Today's reading is from Genesis. Joseph couldn't hold himself in any longer. There was no one with Joseph when he identified himself to his brothers. But his sobbing was so violent that the Egyptians couldn't help but hear him. Joseph spoke to his brothers. I am Joseph. Is my father really still alive? But his brothers couldn't say a word. They were speechless. They couldn't believe what they were hearing and seeing. Come closer to me, Joseph said to his brothers. They came closer. I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sent into Egypt. God sent me on ahead to pave the way and to make sure there was a remnant in the land, to save your lives in an amazing act of deliverance. So you see, it wasn't you who sent me here, but God. He set me in place as a father to Pharaoh, put me in charge of his personal affairs, and made me ruler of all Egypt. Hurry back to my father to come as fast as he can and join me here. I'll give you all a place to live in Goshen where you'll be close to me, you and all of your families. I'll take care of you there completely. There are still 5 more years of famine ahead. I'll make sure all of your needs are taken care of, you and everyone connected with you. You won't want for a thing. That ends the reading.
Please join us in singing Go Make a Difference. difference in the world, and the Spirit of Christ will be with us as we go. Go make a difference in the world. Go make a difference. We can make a difference. Go make a difference in the world. Go make a difference. We can make a difference. Go make a difference in the world. Go make a difference in the world. Go make a difference in the world.
This morning, we want to think on the subject of man of many colors. And I wonder how many of us know the history of Father's Day. I wanted to reacquaint myself with that, so I looked it up and saw that Father's Day was founded in Spokane, Washington, at the YMCA in 1910 by a woman by the name of Sonora Smart Dodd. So Sonora's father was a Civil War veteran named William Jackson Smart, who raised 6 children as a single parent. After hearing a sermon about Mother's Day the year before, Sonora told her pastor that she would like a special day for fathers. Her father, William Jackson Smart, made a difference in the world through his faith, his family, his vocation, and his civic service. So last week I spoke about the different spheres of our lives and how they intersect with one another. So what happens in our families of origin shapes what we bring to our job and how we engage in a job. And then how we learn and are shaped in a job also affects how we and informs how we act out our civic responsibilities. And then it affects how we demonstrate our faith. And so all of the different spheres of our lives are in fact intersected and all inform one another structurally. This morning, I wanted to choose a biblical character who demonstrates how all of these different aspects of our lives relate to each other. And the best example I could think of was Joseph. In the story of Joseph, we see familial power, we see vocational power, personal power, and political power all working together to shape the life of Joseph and those around him. Joseph was the 11th of 12 sons in his family. His father had other wives, and so it would be what we would call a blended family. So if there were 12 sons, we don't know how many daughters. It was a pretty big family. And Joseph's father, we are told, loved him more than his other sons because he was the youngest. Since Benjamin was born a lot later, at the time, Joseph was the youngest son, and he was his dad's favorite. And we don't have to get that far into the story for us to hear the favoritism leaking out into the story, which culminates in Jacob giving Joseph a special coat. A coat of many colors. We've all heard the story about it, and it sounds great, right? But no other son received anything like this. And so it was game on for all of the sons to fight for their father's attention and to cause a war of jealousy over Joseph. Of course, Jacob, the father, probably didn't think about the trouble he was causing for Joseph when he gave him a coat of many colors. And this is where we stop and think about familial power. Where was the power in your family? Who was in charge? Was there a favorite child in your family? Who was it? What did you learn from this experience? And how did it shape you? If you have your own children, do you have a favorite child? And how has this shaped your own family? familial power shapes us, whether we realize it or not. And I can remember when I was little that we used to dread the gifts that my grandmother would give us at Christmas, because my grandmother believed that we were all wonderful to her. So we all got socks. And if it was underwear, we all got underwear. And afterwards, we would all switch around in sizes and colors and all of that. But it was just, we never were sure what the gift of the year was going to be. We just knew we were all going to be getting the very same thing, because she wanted us to know that we were all important to her. Now, this was very different than in my own home, where my parents definitely had favorites. But I looked at myself over the years with my sons and tried to have as little favoritism as possible. And it's funny because a few weeks ago, I saw Jesse in front of the refrigerator door. And I have pictures of different family members on my refrigerator door. And I have a picture of Jesse, a picture of Ramel. So Jesse had taken a magnet from the refrigerator door and he put it on Ramel's face on the refrigerator door. And I said, "So what are you doing there, man?" And he's like, "Oh, you know, I'm the best." And we kind of laughed. And I just thought about, you know, how do we try to learn lessons from Joseph, and how do we treat our children? I don't just mean our biological children, nieces, nephews, grandchildren, our students, if we happen to be teachers. There's a power in that familial experience that we learn about as a child. And so I'm asking us this morning, what can we learn from Joseph about familial power, and how can we correct ourselves if needed? So then we're told that Joseph was 17 years old when his brothers decided that they had enough of him being the favored son. So they were going to create a rite of passage for him into adulthood. So here's what they did to help him into adulthood. They take him and they throw him into a pit. They bind him up and they sell him into slavery. Now that's one heck of a way to get into adulthood. As I listened to that, I thought to myself, this is kind of what it feels like for us being in the pandemic. I feel like someone threw us into a pit of a virus, that they bound us up with face masks, and that we were then imprisoned in quarantine, because it just feels like that's what we've been, you know, experiencing. But for Joseph, this was how they decided to send him into adulthood, was to sell him into slavery. And the next thing we know, Joseph is working for a man named Potiphar, who was one of Pharaoh's officials. Now, this is, as far as we know, this is the first job that Joseph has outside of being a shepherd with his brothers. So we have a chance to think about vocational power. Remember that Joseph had confidence from his family sphere. He had gotten dreams from God, so he knew that his life had special importance. He had also a chance to have his father's confidence behind him. And so he carried this into the work sphere. And so I want to ask us, how do we handle power in the workplace? What happens when people are treated unjustly? And it depends whether we're kind of at the top of the food chain and we're the boss, or maybe we're at the bottom and we don't have a lot of power. But what happens when people are treated unjustly? Are we able to advocate? Joseph was treated justly by Potiphar, but unjustly by Potiphar's wife. We are well acquainted with the misuse of power in the workplace, whether it involves inappropriate sexual advances or salary inequities or verbal mistreatment of employees. And it can be very, very risky to take a stand when other people have power over us. If we do take a stand, we don't know what the consequences might be. Joseph stood up to Potiphar's wife when she made sexual advances toward him, and as a result, he ended up in prison. So how does that even happen? Well, Potiphar's wife told her husband that Joseph was the one who made sexual advances toward her, and Potiphar believed her instead of Joseph. It is super hard for us to advocate for ourselves, and sometimes we don't know what to say or what to do. I have seen both men and women mistreated in the workplace through sexual advances. I've seen people hurt through verbal abuse. I've seen people receiving inequitable pay. Joseph's experience offers us a chance to look at our own work environment and think about vocational power. Looking at the life of Joseph is an opportunity to ask ourselves, how do we handle power in the workplace? What position do we have? Are we called to be an advocate? Is there something we need to do to make a difference? Is there anything that can be changed or improved? So the next thing we know, Joseph is thrown into prison, and he is 20 years old. I was looking at the timeline on Joseph's life. He was 20 years old when he was thrown into prison for a wrong that he didn't commit. He told Potiphar what happened. Potiphar didn't believe him, so Joseph goes to prison. Now, he didn't know how long he was going to be in prison at that time, but think about that, being completely innocent and going to prison. This is the part of the story where I see Joseph exhibiting personal power through his relationship with God. He spent 10 years in prison for something that wasn't even his fault. I even get agitated when I just think about that. And just at the point in the story when it sounds like he's going to throw in the towel and turn his back on God, he surprises us. And he seems to invest himself in other people, in other prisoners, and even is willing to interpret a dream for the Pharaoh. Over that 10-year period of suffering, he remained faithful to God. And he didn't know it was going to be 10 years. He might have thought it was going to be his whole life, but he still was faithful to God. And we're told that he felt God's favor. I don't know about you, but I don't feel God's favor when I'm suffering or I'm hurting. And so I just want to invite us for a moment to pause and think about a time of challenge, a time when we were suffering, and what that was like for us in terms of our relationship with God, what kinds of questions we asked God, whether we felt close to God or distant from God. And I just want us to think about that and to think about how Joseph really did embrace God. And I know that some of you are so good at embracing your relationship with God, even when you're suffering. And I so admire you. I also know the many different times that people feel alone and alienated and hurt and angry when they're suffering. And I do think it's important for us to be able to share that with each other as well, so that we can grow, so that we can get stronger, and just be able to come through the other side. If we can't feel God's love, how do we talk to others about God's love? How do we share our faith if we don't feel like we have it? I invite you to think about this moment and how you draw close to God when things get difficult. But what people do you reach out to? How do you pray? What do you say? What draws you into the feeling of love again? And this is the point of personal power. Joseph spent 10 years in jail before he was asked to work for the Pharaoh. And when he took the responsibility as the governor of Egypt, it was a chance for him to demonstrate a new way of ruling. This was his lesson in political power. So when I read this story, I'm thinking to myself, okay, so his brothers threw him into slavery. The Potiphar did him bad, and his Potiphar's wife was rotten. And I'm thinking of all these things, and I'm wondering, and I'm watching, and I'm thinking, what is Joseph going to do with his power now that he has it? And I don't hear him turning around and being vengeful. I am amazed, and at his ability to take on his responsibility with integrity. Joseph was in charge of distributing food to people during a famine. As we know, food was currency, food was power. When his brothers came for food, he could have turned them away, but he didn't. He could have done what he wanted with his power. And so I ask us, what do we do with political power when we have it? Whether it has to do with, a kind of more of a local level, or maybe it's a state level, whatever it is, how do we use political power when we have it? I've had opportunities in my own life to look at myself and say, how do I use the power I have in my own life? What mistakes am I making? How do I turn that around? What does it mean to have power? And so I ask us, are we willing to share power, or do we need to control others? It's tempting, it's so tempting to repeat mistakes that others have made rather than finding our own way. So how do we help to make changes in political power when we can? I think of Joseph in some of the same ways I think about Esther. Each of them knew what it was like to be without power and then to have a chance to make a difference. They had a chance to make a difference in their family, in their faith community, in their country. So today, as we observe Father's Day, and we look to the story of Joseph to think about familial power, vocational power, personal power, and political power, we realize that our lives are intersectional, and that what we do affects everyone around us. This world needs what you hold. Treat every stage of life as a chance to learn and grow. Embrace where you are right now, and God will use you. The question for each of us is not what day it is, but what can be done with each day. This is the day the Lord has made. We are God's people serving in the world, so I hope that we will embrace the unique purpose that is each of ours and make a difference today. Amen.
Good morning, everyone. I don't really have a ton of announcements today, but it is great to see you all. I know we had a beautiful day for our walkathon yesterday. We had a nice movie night, Friday night of seeing Moonlight. I'm going to continue with the movie nights too. This coming Friday, I won't be able to because I'll be driving back to Philly, and the following Friday is July the 3rd, which is the day before July the 4th. So we might have to not necessarily do it then either, but be on the lookout for these movie nights. As long as people are coming and the church is still not fully open, I'm willing to keep continuing them, and I'm open to any suggestions. Also, you're still welcome to donate money for the Discovery Service Project on our website under giving for towards the walkathon that we did. Also, we always recommend and welcome your weekly tithes and offerings, which you can contribute on the website as well under the giving tab. It's pretty simple to set up. Also, still welcome to mail a check the old-fashioned way, snail mail, that works too. But one other thing that I actually just very recently found out about is a friend of mine is leading a webinar this coming Saturday. I don't have a lot of information yet because it's still in the works, but it's a webinar on that two Black women, one of whom I know personally, one of them I don't, is going to lead a webinar called Anti-Racism and the Church. And so we know we were doing our book study, we know we're focusing on that, but maybe the book study is too big of a commitment, or maybe it isn't, and you're doing that. You want to look into something specifically for the church. So that's going to be this Saturday morning, Anti-Racism in the Church, just a 1 hour or so webinar that they're welcoming us to join in. And I'll give you more information on that as I find it. Thank you so much. And happy Father's Day again to all the fathers.
Please join us in singing our final song today as we are reminded of our calling as Christians to go out and to share God's love. We are one in the Spirit, we are one in the Lord. We are one in the Spirit, we are one in the Lord. And we pray that our unity may one day be restored. And they'll know we are Christians by our love, by our love. Yes, they'll know we are Christians by our love. We will walk with each other, we will walk hand in hand. We will walk with each other, we will walk hand in hand. And together we'll spread the news that God is in the land. And they'll know we are Christians by our love, by our love. Yes, they'll know we are Christians by our love. By our love, we can make it come together. By our love, yes, the Spirit of our God. By our love, we can make each other better. By our love, by our love. We will work with each other, we will work side by side. We will work with each other, we will work side by side. And we'll guard each one's dignity and save each one's pride. And they'll know we are Christians by our love, by our love. Yes, they'll know we are Christians by our love. By our love, we can make it come together. By our love, yes, the Spirit of our God. By our love, we can make each other better. By our love, by our love, by our love, we can make each other better. By our love, yes, the Spirit of our God. By our love, we can make each other better. By our love, by our love. We are one in the Spirit, we are one in the Lord. We are one in the Spirit, we are one in the Lord. And we pray that our unity may one day be restored. And they'll know we are Christians by our love, by our love. Yes, they'll know we are Christians by our love.
We give thanks to the God who is all around us and within us, and pray that others will indeed see that we are Christians through our acts of love. May you be blessed this week. Amen.